And a lot of the old school SE guys were too. So like Perry Kramer, Stu Thompson, and those guys, Jeff Utterback. We'd always refer to him as like Uncle Stu, Uncle Perry, Uncle Jeff, etc., which is really cool. And like even to this day, we still go by it. So it's like you can't see it now, but on the wall in front of me, I have a ton of this charcoal artwork that this guy out of Florida had done of various SE riders. And there's one that's of Perry Kramer, and what was really cool is he autographed it like, stoked to be your uncle all these years, etc., PK type of thing, which is really cool. So I always got like a little reminder of the BMX world on my walls around me, which is pretty rad. Just a lot of good memories with those guys, be it at races or just hangouts at our various houses. They were just always cool. They always made sure that me and my brother were having good times, and just treated us like their nephews, which was awesome.
So today's video is going to be slightly different than the ones that I have done in the past. If you haven't seen the two that I did on Scot Breithaupt and SE Racing, I will leave a link in one of the corners. But for a very quick summary, Scot was one of the founders of SE, Scot Enterprises, SE Bicycles, SE Racing. He will forever be known as somebody that popularized BMX racing. And then beyond the BMX world, he was heavily influential in bringing extreme sports to the masses, to national television, had his hands in a lot of television programs, too many to count. His story does have kind of a tragic ending in it. And then his son actually got in contact with me, wanted to discuss just some BMX history things. I'm super grateful, so let's just continue on. Well, yeah, if you want to now, go ahead and you can just introduce yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Scot Breithaupt Jr., son of Scot Breithaupt Sr., the founder of SE Racing. I was born in 1985 in Long Beach, California, which is also where my dad was when he helped start some of the first races for BMX. We were living in Long Beach, California at the time. We eventually made the move to La Quinta, California when I was around 1 or 2. And my dad was transitioning from being the SE Racing guy and being big in BMX to doing more television production. So he was pretty much the guy who helped put extreme sports onto national networks like Fox, ESPN, etc. He was working out of the television studio based in Palm Springs. It was one of the ABC's like local units. They had a full studio, so he would do a lot of production out of there, mainly the editing at the studio or like interviews and whatnot. And then there were a few events he hosted out there. So besides producing action sports stuff like BMX, skateboarding, motocross, jet ski, etc., because of his relationship with Fox Sports, he actually got into some of the traditional sports as well. They had some offshoot events. Like one of the more well-known offshoot events they had was called the Fox All-Star Challenge. And I want to say that was early 90s, and that was hosted at the La Quinta Sculpture Park, which was like this really beautiful area with like lakes and you would imagine sculptures and everything. And they set up like various obstacle courses and things for traditional sports celebrities to compete in. So the main competitors for that competition and television show were like this was also during like the 49ers heyday. So they had like Jerry Rice was a competitor, Steve Young was the announcer or like commentator alongside my dad, Junior Seau was a competitor, and they had like some normal celebrities like Tia Carrere, who was I think she was most famous for like Wayne's World. She was the love interest of Mike Myers. And then Jill Connick, who was a famous model, and she was married to, I think, Harry Connick. So it's a pretty cool collection of folks. So for him to go from, the extreme sports into more of that, it was pretty cool. And there were a few extreme elements. So some of the courses they had there were like go-kart racing. So they had these 2 go-karts, and it was Jerry Rice versus Junior Seau, which was like interesting to see because Junior's like a big old dude, and then Jerry's like a more slender guy. So we had to gear the carts very differently. Like they had a tiny little seat for Jerry and then this gigantic bucket seat for Junior. And then Junior didn't know how to drive very well, so he kept like smashing hay bales and everything. And they got to a point where they did an exchange where on one of the lakes they did a little jet ski thing across the water, or weight runners, not jet skis, because most of those guys, probably couldn't pop up on a standard. So they kept it easy, and then they did that, and Junior, his teammate was this guy, Dan Cortez, who was a big MTV guy back in the day, in the 90s. I think he was the one who did like Rock and Jock Baseball and any of the sports programming for MTV. And him and Junior were on the ski, and when they went to go get off, to like run off of it, Junior decided just to run it right at the shore and took out like a cameraman net. And then they popped off and ran to the next obstacle, which was like this. It was like a 20 or 30 foot tall water slide. And they had to like scale the side of it and then go down to the finish line.
Just to pick up the stick. Hey, come on, let's go. Picks it up, does not give it to Jill, and pops the balloon himself. That will not count. That is illegal.
He was, he was a very, very busy guy, so he wasn't home that often, and he would take me and my brother sometimes to some of the events, which was cool.
Yeah.
But he always had somewhere to go. It's like even on the weekends when you think your parents have free time, he's like, oh, I gotta, shoot up to Mammoth Mountain, go do a mountain bike race or something like that. We're shooting it for Fox this weekend. So yeah, he was just go, 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 go. Just the guy could never slow down. I think that was, part of his ultimate downfall was that he had an obsession with work. There was that, and then obviously that addiction to work translates to other things. It's just kind of the nature of how things go. Besides doing the sports stuff, my dad also did like television commercials for a bunch of different clients. So, when I was like 6 years old, getting to hang out with like Hulk Hogan was pretty rad because like that was like wrestling's heyday. So to see like the Hulkster rolling and like rip off his shirt on a green screen was like super. It was blue screen back then. It was like super cool. My dad's first production assistant was actually Pauly Shore. So that was before Pauly became like a big famous actor, well before his like In the Army Now and Encino Man. But one of his starts in the TV film world was actually as my dad's PA at South Bay Studios. And there would be other folks that come through. Red Hot Chili Peppers came through to hang out there and shoot some stuff. My dad had a pretty good relationship with Anthony Kiedis and Flea. They all were in recovery at the same time. So they would go to like NA meetings together and stuff. When he's doing the TV stuff, he was mainly consulting in the BMX space since he didn't have that full-time attachment to SE anymore. So we were kind of like bouncing back and forth, which was really cool. So just a lot of great early life experiences that, quite a few people probably never got cool stuff like that. One of my favorite experiences was for my 6th birthday. My dad had worked with the guys that were in the Ninja Turtle suits in the movies. So you have like the actors who do the voices, and then the guys in the suits were actually like stunt guys. And he got the guys, it was Stephen Ho and David Walt. They were Leonardo and Donatello. And they came to my 6th birthday, and it was Ninja Turtles themed, and we had like pizza and played video games and stuff. So that was like pretty rad.
Yeah, what a freaking birthday. That's awesome.
Seriously. It's like the real guys, no way. We're doing like martial art moves and everything. It's pretty sweet.
That's pretty cool. I mean, that'd be a cool birthday now, much less back then.
Oh, heck yeah. I would love that right now. I just turned 39 last month, and I'm like, I would love to have Ninja Turtles birthday party.
I made a funny.
And it is at this point that Scot's story really starts to kind of branch off from his father's. He found out that he had a natural knack for running and started pursuing that instead of BMX. He actually ran for a D1 college and then finally got on a Saucony Olympic development team. So from my point of view, he really got some of his father's best qualities. He was a natural athlete and he was obsessive. What was your relationship with your dad like with him working all the time like that? Again, me being on the peripheral, everybody had good things to say about your dad from the interviews.
Yeah.
And he seems like, I know a few people like this, like they're so optimistic, it's almost to a fault.
Yes. That was definitely him too. Like no matter how bad a situation got, he would find a way to be optimistic enough to like keep the motivation to keep going on whatever the thing was. Even if it was a sinking ship, he would find a way to keep optimistic enough to like keep his head in the game as much as possible. And a lot of those years, and the more personal stuff I actually enjoy talking about because like there's so many stories, good and bad, about him out there. So as far as my relationship goes, going with him, it was rough as a kid. We weren't super close all the time. And it was mainly because he would be here for 2 years, gone for a year, here for 2, 3, gone for a year and a half, etc. So it made it difficult, especially when I started getting really good in the running space. And, I'd be at all the competitions and I'm like the only kid whose parents weren't there. So it was just kind of like a trash feeling. So our relationship was a bit rocky towards the end of high school. It got better once I got into college. And there was like a turning point for me because like, as a kid, it's easy to build resentment against a parent because you don't have too much life experience yet. You don't really understand what they might be going through. So, and you sometimes say hurtful things to the parent because you just don't know any better. You don't realize what kind of harshness they're going through mentally, physically, emotionally, etc. So there were times where I would be rude to them just because I just didn't know any better. And then I had this guy I met. It was really weird. I was working at Circuit City. So I held a full-time job during my running career. So it was like, I was usually at an electronics retailer because technology is something that I'm like incredibly well versed in. It's funny, I'd work these long hours there and then go for my run afterwards. But I had this one guy, his name was James Todd Davis. He was a black man from Compton. Come to the store, we kind of built a relationship, and he, learned a lot about each other. And I'd mentioned like my ambitions of running. I wanted to be an Olympic athlete one day. Somehow we got on the topic of my dad, and I was talking about him, and I was using some harsh words. And he randomly wrote me a letter and brought it into Circuit City one day, where he essentially was saying like, best of luck to you and your athletic endeavors in the future. And then he had a bunch of really great paragraphs about how I should really think more about my relationship with my dad and, give him a second chance. Maybe as a teenager, I probably don't fully understand what he's going through. And he was very detailed, and it made me really rethink my relationship with my dad. And then, I made a ton of effort to really reconnect and have a more positive relationship, and it worked out great. I was super happy to have done so, because to like sit with resentment against somebody, especially a parent, is like not healthy. So that letter was kind of like a turning point for me. It really made our relationship a lot better. Like I put a lot more effort into spend time with him, get to know him on a more personal level, and all of that. And it worked out great. And around that time period is when they did the Joe Kid on a Stingray documentary. And it was awesome. I remember we went to the premiere of it in Hollywood, and like Jesse James and a bunch of other people there. All of the old school BMX guys were there. Like you name them, they were there. Stu, PK, JP, Palferman, Mike Redman, Gary Turner, like the who's who was all in this room to watch the first run of the documentary. It was a really cool experience, and just to see him so happy and being successful again after having so much trouble with like the drug stuff. Maybe this is the time. Maybe this is where he looks happy and he looks fulfilled for a change. And I think maybe this is going to be the time that he's going to be able to just keep it clean, keep moving forward. And that was the case for a while. And his girlfriend at the time was this woman, Heidi Mirasola, who was also a professional racer. She was the really famous female racer out of Florida back in the day. And I think she was an 80s and 90s racer. And she was a great influence on him as well. Things went good for a while. And our relationship did eventually get some more bumps in the road, because he started having something he didn't know. He had quite a few mental health disorders, and he wasn't diagnosed until he was closer to the age of 50. So he had pretty bad bipolar, ADHD, and a couple other things. So and that explained a lot of his mood swings, because he was something that was tough to deal with, where he would be able to go into this insane rage and get angry about something, but then at the snap of the fingers be calm and collected again. And I'm like, humans aren't supposed to be able to do that, man. That's scary. And I guess that was one of the symptoms of the bipolar piece, where his emotions could take these giant jumps in a small window of time. So because of that, and it got worse as he aged, and I'm sure the drug use didn't assist in that either. So that's why our relationship would get rocky. But at the end of the day, everything was on a positive note before he passed. So that was always very important to me, and I was happy that was the case, because there's quite a few people that that wasn't the case with them, and they felt really bad that they had never kind of squashed the beef before he passed, type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Just living with I just had to make a damn phone call. We could have just easily had a discussion and been on better terms. But you never know when someone's going to go. It's we never know. It's just when it happens, it happens.
Yeah.
You can't predict it.
Mammoth Mountain, California, and the Swatch World Mountain Bike Championship. David Stanfield with Scot Breithaupt. Round number 2, the dual challenge, Scott.
Out of the gate, we've got riders.
I absolutely love stories like this, or the history like this, because we all know kind of the all-encompassing big story of how BMX started, how mountain bikes, how cycling started. That stuff is easy to find, but the real details, the intricacies, that's what I love. Those are not so readily available. And through Scott's great generosity, he was wanting to help out with filling in some of the gaps. I find the television aspect of this super interesting, because that was my childhood. I loved watching these things, but I love you all for giving me the opportunity to do this. If you do enjoy this content at all, want me to keep producing it, please like, subscribe, share this video with your friends, get the algorithm to pick it up. All that helps. I love you all. Thank you so much. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.